Welcome to a very special Father's Day edition of Adapter Parish with episode 45, Father of the Bride. As always, before we get into this episode, let's talk about our next episode. In 1981, Steve Gordon wrote and directed a classic story of privilege and excess with the movie Arthur, which starred Dudley Moore as the title character that you shouldn't love, but we all do so much. In 2011, the movie was remade with Russell Brand in the title role, and in 2 weeks, on Tuesday, July 2nd, we'll be looking at both of them in our look at Arthur. But we wanted to stretch ourselves here at Adapter Parish, so for this episode, we watched another remake of Arthur, this time the 1984 Bollywood classic Sharabi, starring Amitabh Bachchan. This is our first time discussing Bollywood on the show. Sharabi's an insane movie. We're super excited to talk about it, and we don't think that you should miss it. That's in 2 weeks. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adapterparishcast@gmail.com or tweet at us using the AdaptCast hashtag. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the show notes from this and all other episodes at adapterparishcast.com. And with that, on with today's show, Edward Streeter's Father of the Bride. Welcome to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. My name is Jeremy Latour.
And I'm Arielle Lipshaw. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day to you as well.
I think this is coming out somewhat in conjunction to Father's Day. We're doing a lot of holiday episodes.
We are. And then after this, there's no more holidays for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
After Father's Day.
No, just all of them.
I don't think we have anything planned for the 4th of July.
No, we definitely don't.
Cool. But happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
And we thought of all the things we could possibly look at, what could be more appropriate for Father's Day than this, Father of the Bride?
I mean, we needed to pick something with the word father in the title.
Mm-hmm.
It was very important.
And there's nothing else. It's either this or In the Name of the Father.
Which is not the same thing.
And a huge bummer.
Yeah.
And this is
and
much...
also, I think, not an adaptation.
I mean, there's... Okay, so there's
many reasons.
Multiple reasons we're not going to do it. But we're doing Father of the Bride.
Yes, which is a book.
Yeah.
And movies.
Well, let me backtrack for a second. So not backtrack, but let's look into the past.
Yes.
I grew up on the new, the Steve Martin Father of the Bride.
Right.
The 1991 version.
Right.
We watched it so much in my house.
Did you?
It was very, very popular.
Okay.
And I, for years, had no idea that it was a remake and that there was a book. I didn't know. I knew there was Father of the Bride Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
I knew about that.
Yeah.
I didn't know about any of the other stuff.
Gotcha.
Did you watch it?
No, I'd never seen it.
You'd never seen Father of the Bride at all?
No.
Until we did this?
No, I had never seen it.
So now that you've seen it, you absolutely don't remember any of it.
No, I had seen Father of the Bride 2. I don't know why. But there it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we read the original book.
Yes,
which
by
was
Edward Streeter.
from 1949. We watched the 1950 movie,
Yes.
which they did immediately, starring Spencer Tracy and a number of other people that we will talk about. And we also watched the 1991 Father of the Bride, starring Steve Martin and other people that we will talk about.
Yes.
So if we're going to talk about the book, I feel like this is one of those ones where what it's about is not going to surprise anybody.
Yeah, it's a father of a bride.
Right.
And that's the story of Father of the Bride.
And it does what it says on the tin.
End of show.
Mm-hmm.
No, this surprised me.
Yes.
Because I thought I had some preconceptions about what a book about a wedding written in 1949 was going to be. I thought it was going to be a lot of oh, women, you know them. And it did have that a little bit, but it was so extremely clear that it was this particular character thinking that in kind of a funny way.
Right.
As opposed to this is a pronouncement about how the world is. It was this particular character thinking certain things that in the course of the book were wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one thing that's really clear in the book and all the versions is that Stanley Banks, the main character, he's not presented as an incredibly intelligent expert.
No. No.
He's very fallible.
Yes.
So all of his views are kind of inherently
Wrong.
Yeah.
Like, this is not Father Knows Best. This is actually more of sort of the sitcom father, like the bumbling father. Like, I guess
Sure.
Father Knows Best is a sitcom. But this is like the other archetype of father. This is like bumbling, kind of dumb father that has to kind of be told what to do and what's right. And the thing that I really liked about this book, like, God, I love a book with no conflict. Like, I just love to read a book that does not stress me out for even 1 second. And this is for sure that.
Yeah.
It is really funny. It's like, it's just this it reminded me of like Irma Bombeck or like just a very mild, like mid-century American comedy of manners.
Mm-hmm.
It is mild and cute and funny.
Well, so I found out a little bit about Edward Streeter.
Oh, great.
That I think it's going to show you that you were kind of right on the money.
Okay.
So a couple things about him. So he was never first and foremost a writer. That was never his thing.
Okay.
So like he went to Harvard and graduated in 1914. While he was at Harvard studying Harvard things, he was also the editor-in-chief of the Harvard Lampoon.
Oh, there it is.
So there you go.
A grand tradition.
Then he moved to work for a building supply business, and while he was doing that was also writing for the local newspaper.
Okay.
And then he was a banker for like 25 years, also publishing like comic novels.
Okay.
His big success in life was not writing, but he definitely enjoyed success as a writer.
Yeah, but like sort of more like a humor columnist.
Exactly.
Type of writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he wrote
He's like Dave Barry.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so he wrote a bunch of books. One that I didn't know that was also one of his was Mr. Hobbs' Vacation.
Okay, I think I've heard of that.
Which became Mr. Hobbs Takes a Vacation.
Gotcha.
In 1962 with Jimmy Stewart. So
That's what I've heard of.
right. And he died in 1976.
Oh.
That's all the things I know about Edward Streeter at this point. But a lot of that made sense to me in terms of, like, I think the fact that he was the editor-in-chief of the Harvard Lampoon, I think, sheds a lot of light into the way that class is treated in this book, because this is inherently a book about, like, the middle class, about the upper middle class.
Right.
And definitely, I'm trying to think of how to say this. It takes the piss out of the middle class a lot.
It's social satire, but it's light. It's
Very.
light satire.
Yes.
It is not heavy satire.
Right.
So let's go to the back of the book.
Okay.
Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please.
Great. Poor Mr. Banks. His jacket is too tight, he can't get a cocktail, and he's footing the bill. He's the father of the bride. Stanley Banks is just your ordinary suburban dad. He's the kind of guy who believes that weddings are simple affairs in which two people get married. But when Daddy's little girl announces her engagement to Buckley, Mr. Banks feels like his life has been turned upside down. And any man with a daughter can appreciate Mr. Banks's feelings. And here's a little piece of dialogue.
Yeah.
Kay's the daughter's name. Now, Pops, please, if we're going, Mr. Banks. And what's his last name? I hope it's better than his first one. Kay. Pops, I'm not going to sit here. Mr. Banks. And where the hell does he come from? And who does he think is going to support him? If it's me, he's got another guest coming. And who in God's name? To say the least, Mr. Banks isn't taking it well. And to make matters worse, he must host cocktail parties with the in-laws to be, initiate financial planning talks with Buckley, and moderate family conferences on who will be invited to the reception. Who can blame him when he sinks so low as to offer Kay $1,500 to elope? But Mr. Banks holds his peace, and when the last wedding guest has departed from his confetti-matted house, he has his memories, and you have a merry record of his tribulations. Two things. Merry record, I think, is very sweet. Like, that's a good description of this.
Sure.
That little piece of dialogue is very random. I don't understand how that fits into this plot summary at all.
Let's go through the plot for a second.
Yeah, why don't you, I did the back of the book, so why don't you do the sort of middle level view of the plot?
All right. So we have this family, as I say, this like upper middle class family. The dad is, he's a banker, right?
He's a lawyer?
Yes, he's a lawyer.
He's a lawyer.
Right.
Yes.
He has this family. He's got his wife. He's got his grown daughter, 2 sons, and his daughter comes home one day and says, "I'm getting married." And that is the setup for the entire thing. And so, like, here's some other characters that we meet. We meet her soon-to-be husband.
Buckley.
We meet Buckley Dunstan.
Yeah.
That's a great name.
It's a terrible name.
Right. Well, that's why it's great.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. We meet his parents. We meet, like, Mr. Masula, who the wedding planner.
Yes.
We meet all these characters, and we're essentially following Stan from this day all the way through till like the day of the wedding,
Right.
after Kay has left.
Right.
There's no great twist. There's no hint that like the wedding isn't going to happen. Everything's fine.
Yeah, like it's not like he discovers that Buckley's a bad dude and has to like tell her, or like something terrible happens, and like it's not the kind of thing where like the wedding is a backdrop to the plot. The wedding is the plot. It's just a book about planning a wedding.
Right.
Which we have done, and it kind of honestly, like, the difference between planning a wedding in 1949 and 2019 was not like extreme. It was still just like, okay, there's all this stuff you have to coordinate, and who are the wedding guests, and where is it going to be, and family might have disagreements about certain things, and that stuff is all very much the same.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to break down the central conflict of the book into one line.
Okay.
As Stanley Banks, I'm going to say the line that is the book.
Okay.
Oh, gee, that's a lot of money. Like that's
pretty much it.
That's the central conflict of everything.
Yeah.
So it's how many guests they're inviting, what food they're getting, where they're
champagne.
Yeah, everything.
There's a whole plot point about the champagne.
And like not a page goes by that he isn't somehow uncomfortable or marginalized in some way, certainly in his own mind.
Right.
He feels like that's what's happening to him.
For sure. But the thing that I think is nice and takes it kind of out of like, I don't know, Mad Men territory is that like his genuine love for his wife and daughter is profound and like throughout the book. And every time she's having a problem and he's complained about money and his daughter is upset, like he goes to her and he's like, sweetheart, we'll do whatever you want. Like, I just love you so much. Like, and it's not like he's being overly indulgent and she's being a spoiled brat. It's just like she's upset and he realizes that he's making a big deal out of probably nothing. And he realizes that the important thing is that they're all a family and that they love each other.
Yeah.
Like, it's really sweet.
It's super sweet.
Yeah.
No, one thing that Streeter does with all the characters that I really like. So, like, here's an example of something that happens with Kay in terms of her conflict and the conflict she introduces. She keeps saying that she wants a small wedding.
Right.
Like, always, I want a small wedding. But I also want to have this.
Yeah.
And I want to have this. And I want to have this many people. But I want it to be small.
Right.
And of course, the conflict there is that what she actually wants is not small even a little.
Right. It's like that old joke, like, I want you to put all my groceries in one bag, but I don't want the bag to be heavy.
Yes, totally. And that would be a bad thing if she and all the other characters were these kind of wacky and hypocritical people.
Yeah.
And Stanley was in the middle as the voice of reason.
Right.
But that's not what Streeter does. Everyone's a little crazy, and Stanley is probably a little crazier than everyone else.
Right.
Like, he is just as crazy as everyone else.
Right. And
we just have more of a window into his mind than anyone else.
And all of their perspectives are pretty reasonable. It's just they don't always 100% agree.
Yeah.
Like, the mother is just like, I just want you to have a nice wedding. Like, I just want you to have what all your friends had. And like, I don't want you to worry about money if this is what you want. But I think the interesting thing is that there's sort of a glimpse, like a window into what a wedding is.
Yeah.
In this particular class, in this particular time, with this particular type of people. Because it's always just, well, this is what you do. This is what you do. This is what you do. There's never any question about where the reception is going to be. Because when you have a wedding, you have the reception at your house. There's never really any question about whether they get married in church or like finding a venue. Like, it's just, or even like the menu is like, no, but this is what people eat at weddings. This is what people do at weddings. Like, it's, and that's kind of Stanley's like inner reflection, is like how often he has seen these tropes before with the weddings of like the daughters and sons of his friends. And like now it's his turn. It's his daughter. I was just saying, like, a lot of things are the same as now in terms of planning weddings, but I think this is a thing that's really different, which is, I mean, at least where we live in our sort of circle of people, weddings can look really, really different.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are places in the US today in 2019 where that's not true, where, you know, maybe smaller communities where everyone's wedding kind of looks the same because like you don't have that many options as far as like, what hall are you going to rent? Well, the hall, the one that there is in the town, like that's what you're going to do because that's what we have. But as far as like the weddings that we have gone to in the last,
In the last 10 years, I've been to a lot of weddings.
And they're all different.
Yeah.
Like, they're all different.
Like, I feel like there's this thing I hear from the people who are actually getting married, which is, we just wanted to do it our way.
Right.
And that, I feel like, is a sentiment that isn't really expressed in this book. And I'm not going to say that that's evidence that it wasn't expressed at that time, but I think the book is playing it, considering how popular it was.
Yeah.
It seems like it was something a lot of people identified with.
Well, I'm only going to disagree a little because it does come up because Kay keeps saying it. She keeps saying, I want this wedding to be my wedding.
No, but that's a little different.
Oh, okay.
Like, I feel like that's always been something, which is, well, I want it to be my wedding, but it's, I want to do the thing that people do, and it's mine.
Right.
And I want to
see.
make sure it's exactly the way I want it.
Right.
But now I feel like there's more of a sentiment of, I'm willing to not do things that people always said you should do because we just want to do it our own way.
Yeah, I think you're right. No, I think you're right because if Kay has a vision of some wedding that is sort of against the norm that she has in her mind, that is not expressed.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a couple of things, like maybe we can talk about this because I think we're just going to end up talking about weddings for a while.
Yeah.
There were like a couple of traditions that I had never heard of. So in this case, right, we have a daughter who lives in the house with her parents until the day she gets married, which was I'm sure extremely common in 1949, less so today. And so, of course, when people are sending her wedding gifts before the wedding, they're sending them to her parents' house. And I guess I've never heard of this or seen it anywhere in any other media. But I guess there was a tradition that you would unpack them and display them like in your spare room, and then people would come and look at them. Have you ever heard of anyone doing that?
No.
I mean, there's some other ones that came up like in the movie as well, so I'm gonna hold on to those until we get to the movie. But that was really weird. I did anything like that strike you?
Here was the one aspect of it that I had a really hard time identifying with.
Okay.
It seemed like Kay and Buckley were not very invested in like preparing for the wedding.
Right.
They knew what they wanted, but they didn't really want to be involved, which is completely the opposite of how we did our wedding.
Yes, we were extremely involved.
Like, we basically told our parents, like,
if you want to give us some money,
yes,
that would be okay.
Like, please help us with it. That's totally fine. But like, we've got it. Like, we had a really good idea of what we wanted, and we handled pretty much everything.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing I think about wedding planning is that you can, in the current day, is you can kind of be spoiled for choice, I guess. And if you are not great at making decisions, or you're kind of indecisive, or you don't have a really good vision of what you want, that can be really hard. I didn't see it in this because what I saw was, oh, no, we're just going to get the best. What's the best? Who's the best caterer?
Right.
We get him. What's the best flowers? We get those. What's the best limo service? We get that.
Because we already agree on what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Like, we know how a wedding is. We know the parts of a wedding. Like,
Right.
there's not that much choice that's involved.
Yeah. There's a lot about like prestige. Like, okay, so everybody's going to serve sandwiches, but who is the one that everyone's going to go, oh, they got them? Like, it's the same sandwich, but you're paying for the name.
Totally.
Whereas in our case, I feel like we spent a lot of time thinking like, okay, what do we want? Because we have lots of different options, and what would actually make this special for us and also not be very expensive, because we got married in Metro Boston.
Yeah.
Which is like probably the third most expensive place in the country to get married.
I feel like the best thing I can say about our wedding was like the venue we chose. This venue is like also a music venue and did all kinds of cool stuff. And when we sent out like the wedding reminder to people and they could add it to like their Google Calendar, of course, Google will like look up the venue and pull a picture from different events that they've done to be the picture of the calendar invite. And the first thing that came up was like the night they set up a wrestling ring and had luchadors. So whenever we had our family adding this to their calendar, they just had luchadors in a wrestling ring. And that was where we were getting married.
Yeah, and we couldn't use the disco ball because it had gotten broken during Kaiju night.
Yeah. Like, they called us the wedding venue. There was like, it's like a big room with a dance floor and a stage and everything like that. And that's where the wedding and then like the dinner happened and dancing. But there was also a lounge that was attached to it. And they called us. So, like, near our house, there was a bowling alley.
Yeah.
And the bowling alley was like a local institution.
Lanes and Games.
That was terrible.
If you know Boston, it was Lanes and Games.
And it got torn down.
Yeah.
And about 2 weeks before the wedding, the venue called us and they said, "Oh, just so you know, we added something to the lounge. We want you to see it. If you don't want it, we will absolutely have it out before the wedding."
Yeah.
And they had actually bought bowling seats.
All of the stock, all of the furnishings from Lanes and Games. So they had all the molded plastic bowling chairs that you sit on each side.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, no, oh my God, this is the best thing. Please keep these.
So all the pictures from our wedding where people are giving toast, we're sitting in the bowling chairs. Yeah. And that worked for us.
It worked great for us.
That worked for us. No, the one big thing that jumped out at me that I didn't understand at all when it came to Kay and Buckley was the fact that it's really important to Stanley that there is a rehearsal so that everyone knows exactly what they need to do the day of the wedding.
Yeah.
And what he doesn't understand and he can't understand is that he's the only person that gives a shit about the rehearsal.
Yes.
And there's a great scene, and it's in the Spencer Tracy movie as well.
Yeah.
Him trying to corral everybody,
including the priest and everyone. Nobody cares.
No one cares. Everyone says it doesn't matter. It's gonna be fine, and of course it is.
Yeah.
But he's the only one obsessed with it. And the only thing going through my head was us at our rehearsal dinner the night before, and you with multiple drinks in you. Screaming, screaming at all of the bridesmaids and groomsmen.
I wasn't screaming. That makes me sound really mean.
No, but yelling with authority that this is how it's happening. Everybody listen.
Well, I had a printed agenda that I had typed up for weeks. It was 3 pages long. And I just needed everyone. It wasn't even a rehearsal of how the ceremony was going to go. I just needed everyone to understand where they needed to be, when, for what.
Yes.
And you are right. I had had several drinks. I did not feel well after this, but I made everybody in the bridal party gather together on the top floor of my parents' house. They had also had many drinks. And so that made it harder. And I was like, I just need 10 minutes of your time. And it turned into an hour because no one would listen to me. Mm-hmm. So I really empathized with Stanley Banks in that particular scene.
I did too.
Yes.
I really did too. Bottom line, is a fun book.
Yeah.
It's just really fun. We haven't even mentioned the fact that, it's 1949. So race.
Yeah.
Not handled in a great way.
No.
They definitely have a live-in maid.
Yeah.
And the dialogue is written in...
She speaks in dialect.
Yeah. It's shitty, but it's one of those things where it is so fleeting that you can... I felt like we could read it. We both acknowledged it as we were reading it. I would call to you from the other room going I got to that part. It sucks.
Yeah.
But the book I don't think sinks because of stuff like that.
No, I think we are just now in a moment in time where it's it is not funny to write down phonetically how people talk funny different from you.
Right.
Not funny, not cool.
But it's a fun book.
Yes.
It's a very, very fun book.
Yes.
And it was so fun that it was a huge success and it was one of the best-selling books of the year. And immediately, I think it was MGM said, we're going to make a movie. Mm-hmm. It's crazy to me how fast these things happened back then.
Back then it was really fast. Well, because they had everybody under contract. So it was you would show up at... I assume you would show up at the studio. They'd be like, okay, you're on this movie today. It wasn't the whole, they didn't have to go through a whole casting process because everybody was already indentured to them.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So we have Father of the Bride,
yes.
1950.
Yes.
Now this was directed by Vincente Minnelli, who is
Liza's
dad and Judy's one of her exes.
One of her many exes.
Right? The screenplay was by Francis Goodrich and Albert Hackett.
Who wrote The Diary of Anne Frank, the stage play.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I mean, they're basically the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about a family. Yeah. So here's the people we have in the cast. So we have Spencer Tracy as Stanley Banks. Mm-hmm. We have Joan Bennett as Ellie Banks, his wife. We have, what's her name? Elizabeth Taylor?
Yeah.
As Kay?
Liz Taylor.
Liz Taylor as Kay.
Yes.
We have Don Taylor as Buckley Dunstan.
Huh.
I'm assuming they're not related.
I assume no relation.
Yeah. Billy Burke as his mom.
Glinda the Good Witch.
Which, this is literally the only other thing I have ever seen her in.
Yeah, me too, but her voice is so distinctive.
It's
the
crazy.
moment she spoke, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nuts. A couple other people that were in it that I think are of note. One is, Kay has 2 younger brothers. Mm-hmm. First, there's Tommy Banks, who was played by Russ Tamblyn. He's Amber Tamblin's dad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. When you said Tamblyn, I was trying to figure out if it would like how the timing worked out, if it was father or grandfather.
No, old father,
Old
though.
father.
Yeah, he was born in 1932. Now, but the other one that's of note is Ben Banks, the other brother, who is played by Tom Irish. And the only thing that's like interesting about him is he then was in the 1991 version as like a relative also named Ben.
A cameo.
Like, it was a fun cameo.
It was a cameo, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. He didn't have like a major role.
No. A couple other things about the movie. So the premiere, one of the things the studio did to like tie in and like get publicity up, like Elizabeth Taylor is this rising star.
Mm-hmm.
Her first marriage was 2 days before the movie premiered.
Oh, did they do that on purpose?
They like
I hate that.
I don't know if they did the wedding on purpose, but I do think the studio absolutely took advantage of it. Couple little things about this. So this was her first of 8 marriages?
Yeah, several to the same person.
Yeah.
I think.
So this was Nikki Hilton.
Okay.
Helen Rose was the costume designer for the movie. She designed the wedding gown that Kay wears in the movie.
Okay.
Also designed Elizabeth Taylor's wedding dress for the wedding.
Dress.
Yes.
Great.
Yep. One thing I pulled out. So this was a popular movie. Like, the book was really popular. The movie was really popular. Everyone really liked it. It was good for everybody. There was one like negative review of it. And I love this review. So it was John McCartan of The New Yorker.
Like at the time, you mean?
At the time,
okay,
yeah.
Okay.
This was his quote. He said the jokes were, quote, rather wheezy, and they certainly don't do much to speed up the picture, since the plot consists simply of outlining the difficulties of putting on a wedding, including, of course, the damnable expense of it all. It grows a little tiresome after a half hour or so. I think this guy got burned before. Like, I think this guy has thrown a wedding for a child.
Yeah, I mean, but also accurate. He has accurately described the plot. It
Right.
is about planning a wedding.
But clearly he was not there. He was not here for it.
Yeah.
And just one last thing about it that surprises me a little. Like, I think it's a fun movie. It is number 83 on AFI's top 100 comedies of all time.
Great.
Like,
I mean,
that seems weird.
No, I think I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
It's not particularly funny.
What'd you think about this movie?
I had the same experience watching it as I had reading the book, which is like, I love something without conflict.
Yes.
I truly love something without any conflict.
They add some.
They add a tiny bit.
Oh no, they add like big conflict in the grand scheme of things.
I suppose, yes.
So, like, there is something in it. One thing I should also say, if anyone is listening who has seen the Steve Martin version and has never seen the original, I was you before this. And I want to describe my experience of watching this movie, because I think this has happened to us before.
Yeah.
And I think you can corroborate. As we were watching this, I kept like hitting you and going, it's the same.
Yes.
It's the same. The Steve Martin one's the same. It's the same. That's the thing that happens. That's the thing that happens.
Corroborated.
It was crazy to me how much the same movie they are.
Yeah.
So one thing, for example, that was in the Steve Martin version that we will talk about, that was in this one, is Kay calls off the wedding.
Yes.
She
Oh yeah, I forgot that wasn't in the book.
Yeah, she calls it off. There's like a moment in it where they get like a really shitty gift and they're putting in the museum of gifts.
Yeah.
And she walks in the room and they say, "What should we do with this one? Because it's a piece of crap." And she goes, "Return it. The wedding's off."
It's very dramatic.
And Stan has to go like talk to her and get her over it. And I can't even like
Buckley
I don't even...
like comes to the house and he apologizes and she comes down the stairs and hugs him and then they're fine.
Like, I feel bad that I don't remember. What was it even about?
The honeymoon.
Was it?
Yeah, he wanted to go camping in Nova Scotia, but she had bought a bunch of very pretty dresses and she wanted to go to parties.
Right.
But he didn't understand.
Yeah. I don't think they do a good job of introducing some real conflict.
No.
But there's not really any other conflict other than that. That's like the one big thing that they add.
No, I mean, he does get drunk at the in-laws' house that one time.
Well, other than Stan gets, like, I would say escalated in this movie. Like, in the book, how would you describe the difference between Stan in the book versus Stan in the movie?
I mean, I guess Stan in the book is just kind of put upon.
Yeah.
And when he gets upset, he kind of keeps it inside, which is fine because we can hear his thoughts. Like,
totally.
It's not in first person, but like we know it's omniscient. Like we know what he's thinking.
Right.
Whereas I think in the movie, reasonably so, because it's a movie, when he disagrees with something, we have to sort of verbally hear about it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I think the element of him feeling inferior to the in-laws because they have more money and a bigger house is definitely played up.
Okay, so this is a thing.
Yeah.
This is a huge thing for me. And this is consistent across every version of this. And I don't know how much more aware of it I am because of the day we live in now versus the time.
Mm-hmm.
These stories are so intent on making us sympathetic towards people who are doing great.
Yeah.
Like, they're doing just fine. And there's this whole conflict that's set up because, like, Stan and his wife, they are upper middle class.
I mean, he's a lawyer.
Like a New York City lawyer.
Yeah.
We're really supposed to sympathize with Stan because the Dunstan's house, like, they are not upper middle class. They are upper class.
Upper class.
And they're doing great.
Yeah.
And Stan feels bad about that. And we're supposed to feel bad for Stan, and I don't feel bad for Stan.
Like, Stan's biggest worry is whether or not they're going to offer him a drink.
Yeah.
Which they do.
Oh, there's so much drinking in this.
There's so much drinking, so many old fashions.
I am, by the way, right now drinking a martini.
I'm very happy for you.
A real martini, a gin martini.
Good.
Just to be clear.
Yeah.
There's so many old fashions that are drunk in this book.
Many old fashions, many martinis. There's a whole chapter.
And the movie, yeah.
Yeah, well, so there's a whole, in both the book and, I forgot we're talking about the movie. They're very similar between the book and the movie.
Basically the same.
But there's a whole scene at the engagement party where he basically gets trapped in the cupboard making drinks for everybody because he's pre-mixed all of these martinis, but nobody wants them. And people just keep coming back and ordering drinks from him.
But as like an example of how little conflict there is, someone walks in and goes, "Hey, I want 4." And he goes, "Old fashions." They go, "No, martinis, please."
Yeah.
Like, that's how little conflict
And that's
is
how
in
it's
this.
resolved. He's like, "Oh God, please, yes, take my martinis."
He's so happy that
so
someone wants the
happy.
martinis. So they really play up that conflict. They really want you to feel bad for Stan,
Mm-hmm.
and they want you to empathize with him. But he's so much more. My note about this is like he's so much more paranoid and fatalistic than the dad in the book. Yeah. This Stan believes everything is going to be just awful and things are not going to work. Whereas, like you said, the Stan in the book just kind of keeps that inside. Yeah. But, like, it's not even that he keeps it inside. He never gets that far.
He's just not as invested. Like, he's just kind of there observing.
Yeah. He loves his daughter,
He loves his daughter, and he loves his wife.
So much.
That was part of what my preconceived notion was about how it was going to be like, oh, his wife wants all these things, and he thinks she's dumb and, like not valuing the right things and, like, spending too much money. But, like, he loves his wife a lot. I mean, there's a scene in the movie. He is, like, it's the wedding day, and he hasn't seen his wife yet. She's like upstairs getting all dressed and made up and everything. And I feel like usually the trope is the dad seeing his daughter for the first time and like how beautiful and womanly she is. Mm-hmm. And like that does happen. He does have this moment where he sees her in her wedding dress and she's so beautiful and he like is, you know, in tears or whatever. But like this happens first, which is he's standing at the bottom of the stairs in his house and his wife comes down the stairs and like she's so beautiful. And in the book, I think there's a voiceover in the movie about what he's thinking. And in the book, he's thinking this, that just like how much he loves her and how beautiful she is and like how much she deserves to have this day go perfectly because she's worked so hard. And like in the movie, he like grabs her and kisses her. And it's really sweet. Like there's no cynicism about it at all. He really loves her. It was a scene that made you a little teary-eyed, I think.
Oh, it definitely did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because that's the thing. Spencer Tracy's fucking Spencer Tracy.
Yeah.
He's great.
He's good at looking lovingly at people.
Oh, yeah. Well, so one thing you should know, he was pulling for Katharine Hepburn to play Ellie.
Oh, okay. I mean, that makes sense.
And I think the producer said something along the lines of, no, the chemistry you have with her is different than the chemistry we want you to have with Ellie.
I mean, I assume the chemistry he has with Katharine Hepburn is like sexual.
Yup. Their chemistry, like, so I love movies.
Yeah.
I love movies. I don't really give a shit about the mythology of old Hollywood.
No, I don't either.
Like, we went out to LA. When we went out to LA for Jeopardy, we were staying in a hotel in LA, and there was like pictures all around the hotel of
for
like
sure there was
old Hollywood.
And it wasn't like a fancy hotel, it was like a Days Inn or something.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh, you're in LA, here's pictures of Hollywood.
Like, I don't give a fuck about any of that. However, I will say there are going to be some exceptions here and there. And one of those exceptions is Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn have fucking chemistry. And also probably fucking chemistry.
Yes.
Like, they're great together.
Yeah.
We were just talking about Desk Set the other day.
Yeah.
If anyone has seen Desk Set, like the scene they have on the rooftop is like, it's one of the best scenes I've ever seen. It's amazing. It's so good. He's great in it, but I am really glad they cast Joan Bennett.
Yeah, she's just very sweet. Like, I actually can't really imagine Katharine Hepburn playing this part because it's very like, she's just a very strong personality. And I think the whole point of this is that the mother is like just extremely sweet.
Totally. But one thing that I think is important to bring up is there is one really, really important thing that the movie adds that the book does not have.
Okay.
Because the book, as you say, is not in first person. It has the omniscient narrator.
For sure.
This movie is told through voiceover. The very, very first scene of the movie is the night after the wedding.
Right.
And Stan is in his house, which is a disaster, and he immediately addresses the camera. Like the very first line of the movie is breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
And it happens throughout. Like he's never really addressing the camera, but there's voiceover throughout the entire thing.
Yeah.
Like that's a decision. I've brought up on the show before how much I don't like unnecessary voiceover.
Yeah, we've had like varying opinions on voiceover.
Yeah, this is one of those things where if I really have to take a step back and judge this, which of course is my right as a spectator.
And also your job as a podcaster.
Yes, it is my job. Yep.
Your volunteer job.
Right, exactly. So many people volunteer for so many things that make the world a better place, and this is what we volunteer for.
This is our
Do you know why?
Little way of giving back.
I like sitting down.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of sitting down. I'm sitting down right now.
In our house.
It's great.
Having a drink.
It's very, very good.
Yes.
I am not a fan of unnecessary voiceover.
Mm-hmm.
They really make the decision, we are going to have voiceover. We're going to have Stan tell his own story. I would be so interested to see a version of this that is more like the book, where we don't get that. But this is what we have.
Yes.
And they absolutely keep that for the 1991 version.
Yes.
They hold on to that and they use it in exactly the same way. How did you feel about the voiceover? Do you feel like, what do you think? On the scale of like, it's perfectly fine to they shouldn't have done it, where are you?
It's perfectly fine.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's
That's
perfectly
fair.
fine. It did not strike me in a bad way.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I thought it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Totally. What'd you think of Elizabeth Taylor in this?
She's extremely beautiful.
Yeah, she totally is. Yeah, she's like the tiniest, prettiest lady I've ever seen.
She's just extremely beautiful.
Yeah.
It is hard to imagine that she came from these two people, although the wife is very pretty.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I totally believe that. She doesn't look like Spencer Tracy
She doesn't
even a
look
little.
like Spencer Tracy.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her. But it's a good movie.
It's good.
I like, again, just to end on this, it was so much fun as someone who's seen the 1991 version so many times. It was so much fun to watch this because they are the same movie.
Yeah, and I hadn't seen it because we watched them chronologically, but it was fun to watch you get excited.
Right.
And so then I kind of did the flip thing when we watched the new one.
Mm-hmm.
The new one.
Right.
The one from the 90s.
The one from, wait a second, 28 years ago.
Oh my God. The remake.
The one where Kieran Culkin, who's like older than us,
Yeah.
is playing like a
baby.
10-year-old.
Yeah. Anyway, what I'm saying is I had the opposite experience because watching that version, I kept going, oh, that was in the old one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which I guess is a good segue. They remade this movie in the 90s.
They sure did. So here's a couple things about it. So normally I would say like, this is who directed it. Here's who made this.
Okay.
This was made by two people, Nancy Meyers and Charles Shire.
Oh boy.
They have made many, many things together. Here's a list of things that they made. Most of these were made like in concert with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Private Benjamin was like their first huge thing together. Baby Boom. By the way, Baby Boom, we watched the trailer for Baby Boom.
Oh my God, that looked god-awful.
Baby Boom, I never thought was a real movie. I thought it was just like a VHS in the Blockbuster. That's all I thought it was. I know the cover. It's Diane Keaton on the cover holding a baby, looking like a businesswoman. And I didn't think there was ever a story that went along with that. I thought it was just a movie cover. And then we watched the trailer for it. It looks fucking terrible.
It looks so bad. Oh my God.
I'm going to link to the trailer for Baby Boom.
Good.
I'm
sure everyone wants to see it.
Yeah, they made The Parent Trap together, the 1998 version.
Okay.
And also, Charles Shire directed Alfie, the 2004. Like, he's directed 3 remakes.
Okay.
Like, The Father of the Bride, obviously,
Yeah.
Parent Trap, and Alfie.
And then Nancy Meyer went on to direct women's movies with all white people.
Whoa, yes. I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm so glad you brought that up. But like, here are the movies that she has directed. The Parent Trap, What Women Want, Something's Gotta Give, The Holiday, It's Complicated, and more recently, The Intern. I only have one question about all of these.
Yeah.
Do you believe that Mel Gibson is what women want?
No.
Well, there we go. You heard it here first.
So I had seen something a long time ago on YouTube that I couldn't find again, but Jeremy found a Tumblr that did essentially the same thing, which was to go through every movie directed by Nancy Meyers.
Yep.
Myers?
Yeah, Nancy Meyers.
Nancy Meyers. And find every line spoken by a person of color. And it is shocking.
Yeah, so it's a really good Tumblr. It's called Every Single Word. So the log line is basically every single word spoken by a person of color in mainstream film title.
Okay.
So they go through a lot of different movies, but there's one particular post that is every single word spoken by a person of color in every single movie directed by Nancy Meyers.
Yeah.
They go through all of the ones that I just mentioned. Now, they bring up a really good point, which is that she has said that she is focused on telling women's stories.
Okay.
But it seems to be only one particular type of woman, which is, and not just a white woman, but like an upper middle class white woman.
Who like lives in New York.
And is also sometimes Diane Keaton.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So they go through, I'm going to link to this Tumblr post because there's really good like supercuts of all of the lines spoken in each of these movies. But one thing that's great is they actually go through and do everything by the numbers. So here's a number. 30 total characters to speak in all movies directed by Nancy Meyers who are people of color. I'm not even going to pull out all these numbers because they're all great, but here's a couple that are really good. How many of those 30 do you think are people of color characters? They call them POC characters,
okay,
with a first and last name.
Out of 30?
Out of 30.
10.
1.
Oh, God.
And it's Oprah Winfrey as herself. She appears on a TV screen in It's Complicated.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So they go through a whole bunch of these, but the final one, I'm spoiling the ending, is there's a lot of like, do they have a love interest? Do they have a requited love interest? Do they have more than a certain amount of lines? POC characters with a requited love interest out of 30,
0.
1.
Is it Oprah Winfrey?
It is a character named Maggie. I believe it's from The Holiday. Maggie is Shannon Sossaman, who is a quarter Hawaiian Filipino.
Gotcha.
That's the best that Nancy Meyers is interested in doing.
Not to say anything about how Shannon Sossaman personally identifies.
No.
But that is a good illustration.
I'll go on record as being a fan of Shannon Sossaman.
Yeah, that's right.
I know you're not.
She's all right.
Yeah.
This is the context in which we're working. Father of the Bride, this Steve Martin, Diane Keaton film.
Right. So this is all the things I was saying before about like really trying to make you have a ton of sympathy for someone who's doing great.
Yeah.
This is that to an extreme. Like this guy runs his own
sweatshop.
What? What? No, they get to take breaks. They get to take vacations.
I'm just saying, I don't feel too bad for the guy like striding around the factory floor with all these women like sewing shoes together.
He makes sneakers.
Yep.
That's his whole thing. He makes sneakers.
Uh-huh.
And like his company is billed as like a competitor to Nike.
It's not.
It's not even a little. Not at all. But here's the deal. He owns it. The whole beginning of the movie is him telling you about how great his life is.
Yeah.
And how great his house is and about how great his family is. They're doing great. And then he becomes a different character who's really insecure about his station in life.
Quite quickly, this
happens.
happens.
Very quickly. So this is George Banks. He's not Stanley Banks anymore. He's George Stanley Banks. They named him George Banks after the dad in Mary Poppins.
Oh, I thought that was a coincidence.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
apparently not. Here's some other people that are in this movie. Diane Keaton plays Nina Banks, his wife. Kimberly Williams plays Annie Banks. His daughter. Kieran Culkin is Maddie Banks. Their one other son. They have eliminated a son.
And made him much younger.
Yes, they have. George Newbern is Brian McKenzie, so no longer Buckley Dunstan. Now we have
we lost that name.
Brian McKenzie, which is nothing. There are 2 other characters that I'm going to mention now. We will talk about them more, I'm sure, in a few minutes. There is Martin Short as Frank Egelhofer and B.D. Wong as Howard Weinstein. So I just want to say right off the bat, I have my nominee for Sir not appearing in this film.
Go for it.
And that is Mr. Missoula.
Okay,
the wedding planner from the book and from the 1950 movie does not appear in this film. Instead, he is replaced by Frank Egelhofer, played by Martin Short. How do you feel about that as a Sir not appearing in this film?
I mean, I feel fine except for the fact that you love this character so much.
I mean, spoiler alert.
Sorry.
So this is Father of the Bride 1991.
Yes.
I had seen it many times. You had never seen it.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think?
I mean, here is my feeling about this.
Yes.
As we watched it, this is sort of what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
That the movie presupposes
Mm-hmm.
that the viewer has a certain kind of nostalgia about a certain upper middle class suburban white experience.
Yep.
And the thing that I had to keep reminding myself as we watched was that just because that happens to have been my personal experience doesn't make this a relatable movie. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like, just, I had two parents that were married.
Yeah.
We lived in a house in the suburbs that was not as big as their house, but it looked pretty similar.
Uh-huh.
In the leafy suburbs.
With your two younger brothers.
With my two younger brothers and our dog.
Uh-huh.
And
your dad was a lawyer, like
my
like
dad
Stanley
was a lawyer,
Banks.
like the other Banks.
But not like George.
No, he did not own a shoe sweatshop.
It's not a fucking sweatshop.
And we did not live in Southern California where apparently they have seasons. That part did confuse me because it was fall.
Right? Like the whole thing gets transplanted to Southern California. Just one more thing. Like I feel like Nancy Meyers is there going like, man, I feel like people aren't going to identify enough with these characters that have a lot of money and a really stable household and really don't need to worry about anything. I know what I'll do. I'll move them to Southern California where it never snows.
No, it was just funny because like there's all these scenes of them like wearing sweaters and the leaves turning red to show the passage of time, which lined up great with my personal experience of growing up in Michigan. But I don't think the leaves turn red and you wear sweaters in September in Southern California.
Let me ask you something. So when you're talking to someone who isn't from Michigan where you grew up and you want to tell them where you grew up, what do you specifically say?
I say suburban Detroit.
Gotcha.
Because Detroit is not the same thing.
And I feel like I still have a buddy who lives in, if anyone's in the Boston area and has ever heard of a Roxbury, like Roxbury is known in Boston.
Right.
Like, if there's a class thing going on, like Roxbury is like lower class.
Yeah, it's like old Boston.
Right. And then there's also West Roxbury, which is a different place. And I do have a friend from West Roxbury who definitely banks on the fact that people don't know the difference between West Roxbury and Roxbury and says, oh, I grew up in West Roxbury, and then watches them go, oh, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
You clearly had a hard childhood.
Yeah, you are from the street, sir.
Yeah, but you do not say Detroit.
No, I don't.
You say downtown Detroit. You say...
I definitely don't say
not
downtown Detroit.
I don't know why I said that. You say the suburbs of Detroit.
I say suburban Detroit.
Suburban Detroit. I apologize. But yeah, they transplanted this whole thing.
Yeah, why? I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about this movie.
Like, the one thing they have going for it is that they do have someone that people like. We've got Steve Martin.
Yes.
I like Steve Martin. Lots of people like Steve Martin.
Everybody likes Steve Martin.
Steve Martin's super fun. He's great. He's Steve Martin. Here's the deal. George Banks, and I'm going to refer to him as George Banks rather than Stanley Banks.
Right.
George Banks is a fucking asshole. He is a piece of shit. Like... I don't understand what Nancy Meyers and Charles Shire were doing in the writing room when they were working on this.
Yeah.
They push him so far past the bounds of what is acceptable for a decent person and expect the audience to be on board with it all at the same time. And the fact that it was really successful, I guess, proves that I'm wrong and people are ready for someone who's a piece of shit.
Well, yeah, I mean, as you say, like his insecurity just gets the better of him over and over and over again.
Constantly.
And it's sort of the same thing where they go over to the in-laws and suddenly they're very overwhelmed by how much wealthier the in-laws are than they are. I'm not even going to describe what happens in this scene.
I will.
It's nothing.
I will.
Well, let me just loop back around. Let's
Please.
just loop back around to it then. So suffice it to say, he wildly embarrasses himself.
Yep.
And
I hate this scene. It's the worst scene in the whole movie.
It's really terrible, and it's very extended. But then there's like, it doesn't end there. Like, he doesn't learn his lesson after being extremely humiliated. It just keeps happening over and over and over again. And Diane Keaton, to her credit, keeps saying to him, "What's wrong with you? You're being an asshole. You're being really weird about this." She says it to him in their kitchen. She says it to him when he goes to jail.
You ruined my note.
I'm so sorry.
They escalate everything.
Yeah,
Everything's escalated.
He literally ends up in jail at one point.
Because of how crazy he's being.
Yeah, he's just being crazy about this wedding. But the thing is, they never really, like, there are nice scenes where it shows how much he loves his daughter.
Totally.
And, like, they play basketball together and, like, that's their thing, which is not something I related to.
I don't remember them playing basketball, though. There's a scene in the movie where they're playing basketball?
Yeah, there's several scenes where they're playing basketball.
It must have lasted for no more than like 30 seconds, though, I guess.
Are you joking?
Yes, a little bit.
Okay.
This is the longest scene in the goddamn movie.
I was going to say, I am confused.
He plays slow motion basketball with his daughter for, I'm going to say, conservatively, 20 minutes.
At so many different ages, too. Like, in flashback, in the present.
It's ridiculous.
It's a lot.
I hate it so much.
It's a lot of basketball.
Okay, full disclosure. I hadn't seen this movie in a really long time, and I grew up on it. I didn't like it as much this time as I used to.
So as I say, there's all these scenes that do communicate his love for his daughter and his feelings about how she's young and she's getting married.
Yeah.
But his behavior is never justified.
Never.
And I feel like that is the thing that is missing that was in the earlier versions, which is like, anything he does that's a little bit crazy is it was directly related to how he feels about his daughter. And in this case, the two things seem totally unrelated.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like he's a clueless piece of shit for most of the movie.
Yeah.
There's a whole scene where he's talking about like where they can have the wedding reception. Mm-hmm. There's like multiple scenes where first he thinks like, oh, we'll have it in the backyard and we'll do a barbecue, which is so clearly out of touch with what his daughter wants.
Right.
Like in the book, in the original movie, the whole thing that he's guilty of is not asking her what she wants, but he's not replacing it with something that he thinks would be better.
Right.
Whereas in this movie, he's constantly going, I don't care what you want. What you should do is you should do this.
Yeah.
Like you should have the reception at the Steak Pit, a restaurant we love. And she's horrified. And the audience is horrified. And Nina is horrified because it's horrifying.
You're right.
It's terrible.
Unless that's what you want.
That's the thing. But the reason it's horrifying is not because it's inherently horrifying. It's horrifying because clearly, I was going to call her Kay. Clearly, Annie doesn't want that, and he never asks her what she wants.
Kay is Diane Keaton's character from The Godfather, so it just makes it all the more confusing.
I guess so. Yeah. Totally. He is a jerk. He's really, really shitty, and it bums me out.
Yeah.
It really, like so many things, it just bums me out.
Do you want to talk about the thing that didn't bum you out?
I want to talk about Frank Egelhofer.
Okay, go ahead.
He is maybe a top 10 character for me in any movie. Martin Short is a goddamn national treasure. Canada, you are lucky to have him. He is just wonderful. That's the thing. Okay, so basically what they did is they took Mr. Masula, who was a character who wasn't really anything. All he did was represent how out of touch Stanley was. Mm-hmm. Like he's basically saying, you need this and you need this and you need this, as Stanley is going, that's a lot of money, that's a lot of money, that's a lot of money. And that's kind of a one-note joke, and I'm glad they didn't go in that direction with it. So they've replaced him with Frank. And Frank is like, okay, here's like a minute of Frank dialogue.
Master and Mrs. Banks and the lovely bride. Hello. Hello. I'm not going to go your wedding. Frank, a pleasure to meet you. Okay, please come with me and we'll talk all about our big day. The big day for the bride. Popular. Oh, sit down. On my own design. I designed that very nice, I think. Now. So, you have not made up your list yet, but you know that you want the wedding at home on January 6th, right?
So that's what he sounds like throughout the movie.
It is...
He's incomprehensible.
Incomprehensible. And I feel like you could criticize him for saying his accent is inconsistent, but it's so perfectly inconsistent.
That's the joke, though. The joke is that it's inconsistent.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. And they didn't just say, okay, we need Frank. Frank is funny. They then upped the ante a little bit and added his assistant, Howard. Howard Weinstein is played by B.D. Wong. And
Who is also a national treasure.
oh, BD Wong's great. Can you describe Howard Weinstein in a sentence?
He is an Asian Jewish man with a strong New York accent.
He's a fucking delight.
Yeah.
It is great. It is, I would say, it is forward thinking. It is subversive. It doesn't play into stereotypes.
Well, it subverts stereotypes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, it uses stereotypes in a way that I actually find interesting.
Yeah.
And, like, as a Jewish man, I found it very refreshing.
Yeah.
I loved it. And the other thing that makes these two characters funny, who would be so broad and so two-dimensional in any other thing, is Martin Short and BD Wong, who are actors that are up to the task of what they need to do.
Yes. And like, I feel like with the Howard Weinstein character, like, I feel like in the hands of another actor, perhaps, or like who knows how they wanted to direct it. Like,
yeah.
My feeling was that the fact that it wasn't terrible was thanks to the actor,
yes.
not the director. BD Wong strikes me as someone who has a lot of dignity.
Yeah.
Just as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I don't know him. This could be wrong. But I could just picture him being asked to do something that he found personally offensive and going, no, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Like, I can imagine him doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe at this point in his career, he wasn't doing that because this was the early 90s. But like,
I mean, this was 2 years before Jurassic Park.
His role in Jurassic Park was not very large.
No, but it made a huge mark on me.
It's true because he's great.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm saying is he strikes me as a human being that is like, no, I'm not going to make myself look stupid.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to do that.
Mm-hmm. They're great. I feel like I don't need to say more about them. I just think Franck is an amazing character and so just comedically consistent and wonderful, and Martin Short is great. Cool. I feel like are our listeners going to understand how much I like Martin Short?
I think you've made your position abundantly clear.
I'm worried that I haven't, but I'm going to let you move us on anyway.
Do you have anything else to say about Father of the Bride?
Well, I think there's a few actors we should talk about really quickly.
Great.
I will say I think Kieran Culkin is a delight.
He's so cute. He's very good.
He's adorable.
Yeah, like really an excellent child actor.
Always my favorite Culkin.
The Culkin family is...
Yeah, but he's my favorite Culkin.
Yeah.
I think Kimberly Williams and George Newbern do a really, really good job of carrying the movie in two roles that don't really get a lot of comedy.
Yes. I mean, they do a really good job playing fairly bland characters without necessarily being bland themselves.
Right. To be clear, this is Annie and Brian.
Yeah,
this is the young couple.
The young couple.
Yeah.
And, you know, we do have that scene, again, where they have the conflict.
Yeah.
And she wants to call off the wedding.
They escalate it even more because her reason for wanting to call things off is, like, a little more valid.
Well, it's because she thinks he's lying about something her father did that turns out to be true, which is that he made a complete ass of himself at the in-laws' house.
Well, no, that was like a secondary thing.
Oh,
the
okay.
reason she was calling things off is because he was being very like old-fashioned.
Right.
Because he bought her a blender.
Oh, yeah, he bought her a blender.
And like they actually do take it even a step further. He buys her a blender and then he says, "Oh, I didn't even talk about the swimming pool scene. I'm going to talk about the fucking swimming pool scene now." Okay, here's the thing that makes no sense and I hate when they go to visit I want to call them the Dunstans, the Mackenzies.
I just keep calling them the in-laws.
Oh my God. So George does this dumb thing where he goes to the bathroom and then decides to snoop around their house and look at their checkbook for no reason.
For no reason.
It's terrible. And then, of course, their dogs are really scary and they have to... He basically ends up falling into their pool because he's being chased by dogs.
Holding the checkbook.
And then when Annie and Brian have their fight later, because Brian buys her a blender and she says, "That's so old-fashioned. He wants me to just be this housewife," and everything like that, which, like, here's the deal. I get, like, that's valid.
Yeah.
I think that's valid.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. He then says, "But also your dad did this thing with the checkbook." And she's telling her dad about this. And she says, "And then he lied. He lied about a thing that you didn't do." And then George has to tell her, "Well, actually..." Well, actually, this happened. But he actually, like, takes Brian out after this. He takes him out for drinks and has a conversation with him. So they're basically taking something that was added in the original movie and then escalating it further. I don't hate it. I hate the swimming pool scene because I hate when he falls in the swimming pool.
Yeah.
But they take this one escalation and they do a pretty good job with it. And then decide to go even further. Was this before or after he went to jail?
I
No,
think
it's after. It's after he went to jail.
I don't remember why he goes to jail.
No, he goes to jail because of some stupid bullshit in the grocery store where he has the same observation that every 90s comedian had, which was that hot dogs come in a pack of 8 and hot dog buns come in a pack of 12, and he's like making a scene over that in the grocery store, and they arrest him.
Yeah.
It's dumb.
What he's doing also doesn't make sense because he's like tearing 2 hot dogs out of every package. And it's like, why would you need to open multiple packages? That part, I literally didn't understand the math.
It's dumb.
It's really dumb.
It's dumb and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I don't feel bad saying that. I do think it would be nice to end on someone I think we both like.
Yeah.
Let's end on Diane Keaton.
Yeah, for sure.
What did you think of Diane Keaton as Nina Banks?
I thought she was good. I mean, I thought the role was underwritten for Diane Keaton.
Real? You thought, wait, hang on. So you thought the role was underwritten?
I thought the female character was underwritten.
Oh, no. In a Nancy Meyers movie?
Oh, no.
Shut the fuck up.
I mean, it just... like, they put in little touches here and there to make it clear, like, oh, no, she has a career. She's not a housewife.
Yep.
And, like, she has thoughts of her own.
I can't remember what her job is. I literally can't remember what her job is. What does she do?
I think she's, like, a designer?
Which is exactly the type of career that I feel like Nancy Meyers would come up with for a woman. Like, I feel like Nancy Meyers is not actually interested in writing scenes about her working.
Yeah.
Because we see George at his job all the time.
We don't see her at her job whatsoever.
So she has a career, but it's definitely like a really easy career to just say, oh, she has a flexible schedule.
Yeah, and like we don't even ever hear her say like, I'm going to work now. And like whenever he comes home, she is in the kitchen cooking.
Yeah.
So it just, I feel like the fact that they had Diane Keaton for this movie and underused her is a little bit criminal. I mean, let me give you an example of how I feel like she was underused a little bit. They do the same scene, right? Where it's the wedding day and George Banks is standing at the bottom of the stairs thinking about his family and how much he loves them, and his wife comes down the stairs and she's all dressed up and he has this moment of, oh my God, she is so beautiful. I love her so much. This is so amazing. And I just felt like they did Diane Keaton a real disservice and made this sort of into this tell not show moment because she looks exactly the same as she looks in the rest of the movie. They didn't do anything with her hair. They didn't make her look any different. Like, she just looks like Diane Keaton, who is a very attractive woman, but she looks exactly the same as in the rest of the movie. Whereas in the 1950 Father of the Bride, when the wife comes down the stairs, her hair is done totally differently. Like, she's in a very sparkly, fancy dress. Like, she looks truly gorgeous and also like festive.
Right.
That's just the kind of thing that like sort of kept happening. Like, they would tell you things about her, but they weren't actually showing you what she was doing or thinking or feeling or like anything about her character. She was just the mom. I
came out of this. You've seen it for the first time.
Yeah.
I saw this so many times when I was a kid. I came out with 2 big reactions.
Yeah.
Like, 1, this movie is nowhere near as good as I remember it being. 2, Frank is better than I remember.
Yeah, he was pretty funny.
I love him. And that's it. Because, of course, there were no more Fathers of the Bride movies, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Wait.
Podcast over.
Wait. No, hang on. I found my notes. Oh, we've got more to talk about. Because there were 2 more movies that were made. Because in 1951, there was a sequel to the original called Father's Little Dividend. And then, of course, in 1995, there was a sequel to Father of the Bride called, are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Father of the Bride Part 2. And it's all about babies. Okay. So Father's Little Dividend.
Can I tell you the very first note that I have under the heading Father's Little Dividend?
Sure.
Jeremy is crying.
Was I?
What were you crying at?
I don't remember.
I think you were crying like in the opening scene.
Like, well, can I tell you this? Because my first note from the whole thing is gender essentialism right off the bat. I don't know what.
Clearly, we had vastly different experiences.
I guess so. I feel like he was just talking about how happy he was and how much he loves his family and his daughter.
Yeah, I think that's why you were crying.
Probably.
Like,
he's in the family way.
So.
No, she's in the family way.
She's in the family way.
I don't know how oldie-timey things work.
So, having just spoiled the plot, essentially, we learn that the wedding was a year ago.
Yep.
And Kay is now having a baby.
Yay!
Yay, Elizabeth Taylor!
Yay!
She's knocked up.
Yep. Doesn't look pregnant for 1 minute of this movie.
No, that's not true. She looks a little pregnant at the end.
When she has the baby.
Well, it's really funny because she is super skinny for most of the movie, including like at the baby shower, which had me write down how early are they throwing this baby shower?
God, I forgot about the timeline of all of this.
Yeah, the timeline is weird because, again, this is like sort of social occasions and conventions that maybe I don't understand and were maybe different, because it seems like the minute that she announces to her parents that she's pregnant, the mom is like, oh my God, I want to throw a baby shower. And then they have it immediately. And it's a direct correlation to like the engagement party in the wedding movie. But like, I always think of baby showers as something you have like when you're about to give birth. Like frankly, I don't think I've ever been to a baby shower, but every baby shower I've ever seen or heard of, the woman who is being showered, the person who is being showered is hugely pregnant. And that's how you know it's their shower. There's a really pregnant person sitting in the middle of the room opening presents. Like, that's what it's for.
Totally.
So I am going to say something that I don't know if we have officially mentioned on the podcast before.
Oh.
And the reason that I took the particular notes that I took about the accuracy or lack thereof of this movie is that we are currently having a personal experience similar because we are having a baby.
Yay!
Was that lead in good?
That was pretty good.
Was that good?
That's pretty good.
So obviously I can't speak personally at the current moment of recording this to third trimester or labor.
No.
But I can tell you what I understand that to be like from my research. My personal research.
Yep.
I'm just going to go into, again, this is actually really similar, right? So when we watched the 1950 Father of the Bride, it was like the conventions around weddings were either very similar or very different from our experience. And I feel like I sort of had the same thing with this movie as well. So Elizabeth Taylor announces to her parents that she's pregnant. She does not look pregnant. And we were sort of trying to figure out the timeline of like how pregnant she was. And we really couldn't quite figure it out. We were not sure that the movie makers knew or cared or understood how this works.
Or were allowed to like demonstrate how it works.
Exactly.
Not demonstrate. I want to be clear.
No.
Demonstrate.
I understood you. Because at one point, like
demonstrate an understanding of how it works.
Yeah, because like at one point she definitely like changes into what are clearly maternity clothes, but like her body is the same.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, I understand. You get bloated. Like, you don't want a waistline. Like, that's no good.
Right.
Like, you want the elastic pants.
Mm-hmm.
This is, of everything that happened in this movie, this is what horrified me, because they go to set up the nursery, and of course it's like a competition between the two sets of in-laws about like who can provide the best new stuff for the nursery. And we are lucky enough to have...
Oh, it's that age-old conflict between the upper middle class and the upper class.
That's right. And we personally are lucky enough to have a really good friend who is a social worker for babies. So she has given us a lot of good advice about like what you need, what you don't need, like what safe guidelines are. And she literally...
I was just imagining someone who is a social worker for exclusively babies.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't talk to the parents, only talks to the babies.
I mean, that's pretty much what she does. She basically sent us a list of things saying, here are the things you don't need, but here are the things that people will tell you need, but actually will kill your baby. So we were looking at this nursery, and I was like, all I see are death traps everywhere. Because they've got, so safe sleep guidelines currently are crib, no bumpers, one fitted sheet, nothing soft, no blankets. If it's cold, you put the baby in a sleep suit and you lay the baby on their back.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so that they don't have the risk of compromising their airway while they're asleep.
Yes.
And so they've got this cradle decked out, blankets, pillows, soft bumpers around the sides of the crib, and I'm like literally clutching your arm going like, oh God, that's not safe. The other thing that I did want to note is there is a scene that Elizabeth Taylor gets really mad at her parents, and I don't even remember why. They're just like trying to pressure her into something.
This is one of my two notes. It was about the name.
Oh, it's about the name. That's right.
Like all the parents are saying like what would be a good name for the kid.
Yeah.
And the thing I love about this scene is that here's the deal. I'm spoiling the joke. I don't care because I don't imagine many people are going to run out and watch this. One quick note about this. Did you know this movie's in the public domain?
I did not.
MGM fucked up, and in 1979 they didn't renew the copyright, and this movie moved into the public domain.
Did we pay to watch this?
No, it's like on Amazon Prime streaming.
Great.
Yeah, like for free.
Great.
As long as you pay for Amazon Prime.
That's right.
But they're having this great dinner, and all the parents are arguing about what the baby's name should be, and the music in the scene
so dramatic.
is incredibly dramatic, and it's getting more and more dramatic. And then finally Kay yells at all the parents and said, we're going to name this baby whatever we want. You need to stop fighting. And she leaves the room, and the music is rising and rising, and Stanley gets up and walks across the room to the stereo and just flicks it off, and the music turns off.
It was diegetic the whole time.
I fucking lost it. That's like, oh, that old chestnut.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. That is an old joke done very, very well.
You laughed so hard, and we had to go back and rewind and watch the whole thing again.
It's just really good. They handle it very, very well. One thing that I was super happy with this movie is like some of the jokes are gold.
Yeah.
Like there are parts of this movie that are great and super funny.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say the whole movie is incredibly successful, but it's not like it's totally unsuccessful.
Yeah. And I will say, like, again, personal experience, pregnant lady yelling at her parents is a familiar mood.
Yeah.
At this point.
Exactly. Anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, that's totally fine. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was the scene with the doctor. It's just like a mix of the old and the new. Elizabeth Taylor says to her parents, I have this great doctor. And they're like, wait, I don't understand. Like, why aren't you going to see like our family doctor, like who delivered you?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, no, I had like he came highly recommended. Like he's a really like well-known OB. Like this is my doctor. Like I have made this choice. She's like, he's modern. He's very, very modern. And the two sets of parents kind of get together and they say, this seems like really concerning. Like this seems very different. And, you know, this is not what we know and what we're used to. And instead of doing what grandparents I would recommend doing in this situation and saying, you know what? Times have changed in the last 35 years. I guess in the last 20 years in this case.
Yeah.
Times have changed in the case of our parents in the last 35. It has been 35 years since any of you had a baby. Perhaps the modern research that the kids are doing is what's recommended these days, and maybe we should stay out of it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that. They say, we're very suspicious of this doctor. We feel like he's telling her weird stuff. Our solution is to go without telling her and have a meeting with her doctor about her health condition.
Yeah.
Which is horrifying to anyone that works in healthcare or has ever been a patient in 2019, because you are not allowed to do that.
No, there's this thing called HIPAA.
Yeah.
And like, it doesn't just extend. This just reminds me of parents who are like calling up colleges to find out what their kids' grades are.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the first time that parents of today understand, oh, my kid is an adult now.
Kid is an adult.
You're not going to tell me their grades just because I called up.
That's
oh no.
called FERPA though.
Oh, it's FERPA?
Yep, that's FERPA.
See, I know all about HIPAA.
Yeah.
But I don't know about FERPA.
Yeah.
By the way, our parents are being super cool about the whole thing.
Yeah, our parents are fine.
Yeah.
They're all listening to this.
Just to be clear.
The doctor is very kind to them and says, I'm so glad you came in. Which again,
that's where it goes off the rails.
Unrealistic.
Yep.
He sits them down at his desk and he's very imposing and impressive. And he looks like any 1950s doctor, which is to say a white man. And he starts laying out all of the things that he believes about childbirth and having babies. And it seems to me that the way that this is being presented is that this is supposed to be radical.
Right.
Like the parents don't have a good reaction to any of this. They're like, oh my God, this is like too modern. Like this is not right. Here's the radical, crazy modern advice that the doctor is giving to these grandparents. I think women should be awake during childbirth. Now, frankly, if it was safe to knock me out, take the baby out, stitch me up, and wake me up again when it was clean, I would be fine with it. But we know that that is not the right way to have babies.
Correct.
Here's the other thing he said. Here are several other things he says. We don't believe the baby should be taken away from the mother at birth immediately and taken to a nursery. We think the mother should have the baby in her room with her. This is totally normal, and we do this today.
Mm-hmm.
We think it's important that the mother carry her own baby. As opposed to what? I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
I guess like having a nurse follow her around. Well, I think there was a thing like in the old fashioned days that like they were really worried about hemorrhaging because there wasn't really anything you could do about it. Like if the woman started to bleed. So they were really, really careful about having her lift anything. Like even like you weren't like they would tell you don't lift your baby. Because it's so heavy and you might hemorrhage. for like weeks. You weren't like, you could hold the baby, but you couldn't lift the baby. Like someone had to hand you the baby. Which I think even now, like if you have a C-section or something, like you might not be able to bend down to lift the baby. Anyway, but no one's going to say like it's dangerous to lift your baby, like because it's so heavy.
Just to be clear, there are other podcasts that handle this subject in detail.
I can recommend a few, actually. We can put them in the show notes.
Totally.
And then the other thing he says that they sort of hint at, but can't quite get all the way there because of the censors, is he literally just says like, and I think it's important for mothers to feed their babies, which A, seems like common sense, but B, I do think he's talking about breastfeeding.
Well, so just to be clear, like the emphasis is on mothers.
Yes.
Like,
well,
we think the mother should feed the baby.
Right. Well, I think the mother would always feed the baby. I think the question is, are you breastfeeding or bottle feeding?
Right.
And again, like, what we try to say today is pregnant people,
right,
not pregnant women or pregnant mothers, because people identify in different, not everyone that can give birth is either a mother or a woman.
Yep.
So like we want to be very inclusive in our speaking. So I want to be clear, this is how the doctor in 1951 is talking.
And just to be clear, I just on another note that I feel is related, this is something you and I have said in our personal life many times. If it was medically possible for me to carry the baby
it would
instead,
be so much better.
I'd be happy to do this for you.
I really appreciate that.
As it stands, I can't.
Medical science being what it is.
Yep.
It is not possible.
Arnold Schwarzenegger movies aside.
So I just want to go back very quickly. The radical advice that they're very unsure of in 1951 is women should be awake in childbirth. You should probably keep your baby with you. You should probably hold your baby, and you should probably feed your baby.
Yep.
All of which are things like we agree with today.
Yes.
So I think the scene landed a little bit differently than it was intended.
There was this part of me that was thinking like, okay, so you and I have had many, many like in-depth conversations about things that we plan to do and are doing now.
Yeah.
And like there are definitely disagreements about certain things in today.
Yes.
And I knew you were going to talk about some stuff, and I'm wondering like, I wonder if anything's going to come up that there's actually disagreement about now. And I'm so happy to hear like, no, just the basic stuff.
Just the basic stuff. I mean, like, I would say that the one that there is no disagreement about is being awake.
Yeah. Oh, so there's so much of this in this movie.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was what I had. Also, when she does give birth to the baby, it is a different baby, and it does shrink in between, like when she first has it and like later on.
Oh, totally. When she first has it, it is a child.
It's so big.
It's like a toddler.
It's like a 6-month-old.
Yeah. The only other note that I have, so there actually is a good amount of this movie because the movie's not about Kay, the movie's about Stan.
And yes, how he feels about becoming a grandfather.
Right. So like he starts going to the gym because he wants to feel young, which is exactly the same in Father of the Bride Part 2. Like again, crazy to me that like they're the same movie in so many ways. Not one big one, but in so many other ways they're the same movie. I'll get to that in a minute. But there is this thing that happens near the end of the movie where, because if the whole movie is about Stan's relationship with this child and his relationship with being a grandfather, the movie doesn't end with the birth of the child. The movie ends with him like being okay with being a grandfather
and forming a relationship with the baby.
Right. So one of the things that needs to happen in the third act is he loses the baby. He loses the child.
The as yet nameless child.
It hasn't even been named yet. And he goes to the park and he starts playing with a bunch of children, which is a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
And he loses the child. And he actually has to, like, he's running around like crazy. And he finally finds a cop. And the cop goes, "Oh, you lost a baby? Funny, we found a baby. Are you the piece of shit that lost it? We're going to bring you to the station and make you answer to all these other cops who are really enjoying hanging out with this tiny little baby.
It's a cute baby.
Because you're a piece of shit."
Yeah.
And he has to be okay with that. Like, my only note about this whole moment is like, this is not funny. This is terrifying.
It's terrifying. No, we were terrified.
Terrified.
It's like anyone's worst nightmare is losing your baby.
This is a comedy. I don't support it. I don't support it. And this is not in the new one. Because in Father of the Bride Part 2, it basically ends with the babies being born.
Because they recognize that a baby being in peril is not funny, and it's terrifying.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I also, like, I can't speak for... Okay. Stan is being in a position that I've never been in my entire life, which is becoming a grandfather.
No, you have not been in that position. That is for sure.
Never happened to me. So I can't pretend that I'm going to understand what anyone who's going through that is going through mentally in that situation. But, like, Stan's being a piece of shit about his grandson, and I don't imagine that is actually the reaction of most people who become grandparents.
I mean, we are in close contact with two people who are about to become grandfathers, and neither of them are acting like in any way in this manner.
They both seem seem to be like, oh, I don't know, excited about it is the way that I would put it. But that's Father's Little Dividend.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
It's fun.
It's fun. And if you have Amazon Prime, it's free.
Free.
And then in 1995, they made Father of the Bride Part 2. Made by all the just like Father's Little Dividend was all the same people. Like this was all the same people as Father of the Bride Part 1. I have nothing new to say about the credits. Still Nancy Myers, still Charles Shire. I hated this movie. I hated this movie so much.
Yeah.
This movie fucking sucks.
It's not good.
So let's spend a good amount of time talking about it, shall we?
We spent a great deal of time trying to parse out the timeline of this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give full disclosure, we could not figure it out.
Right.
So I don't really even want to go into it other than to say the big plot point of this movie is that Annie Banks McKenzie is pregnant a year after her wedding, has come home to inform her family of the fact.
I'd say a couple of years because the movie's like 4 years later.
Oh, you're right, because the son is like a teenager at this point,
like
and
a tween,
she's got like a good job. She's working as an architect. Like, yeah, you're right. She's a little bit older,
which is of course how things work.
Which is how things work.
Yeah,
that's plot point number 1.
Yep.
Plot point number 2 is that several weeks to months later, her mother, Nina Banks, discovers that she is also pregnant. She thought she had the menopause.
Yeah.
But what she has is the pregnant. Which I understand she is like older, right? To have a baby. Like she's in her like late 40s, but like she has a young son. It's not like all of her kids are like in their 30s and grown.
Well, they keep having this thing that happens because they thought Annie was their last kid.
Right.
And then 10 years later had another
like
one.
He was supposed to be their late in life baby. And now they're having a much later in life baby.
So they just keep having sex every 13 years.
Yeah, apparently. Well, this is part of what we were trying to parse out.
Yeah.
Because there is explicit reference, unlike, thank God, in 1951 to sex. First of all, like, there is a scene in both of the movies where Grandpa comes home real horny.
Yes.
Because it does happen in 1951 too. I wrote Grandpa is horny. But like Steve Martin comes home, he's feeling great. His wife's in the kitchen.
He's gone to the gym. He's got his hair dyed and everything like that.
He's feeling so old because
Yes.
he's going to be a grandfather. So he's trying to make himself feel younger.
Right.
And one of the ways he's going to make himself feel younger is to bone his wife.
Right.
And he literally says to her something about making love. And her response is literally, I wrote it down because it was so ridiculous. She goes, "What do you mean make love? Like, you've clearly done it at least twice. Like, what do you think he means?"
I don't get Nina.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't get her 100% in the first one. I don't get her at all in the second one. I feel like she is a character completely divorced from the actions that are happening around her.
Yeah.
In so many ways.
Yeah. Like, even her own pregnancy.
She just, like, can I give one example
Yeah,
of this?
for sure.
And it happens later. So one of the other plot points that happens is the thing with the fucking house. And I'm just going to give the quick version of this.
Please.
They're about to have a baby, and what George decides is like, okay, we're going to sell our house that I love, that I spent the entire first part of the first movie talking about how much I love. I'm going to sell the house. Who he decides to sell it to, we might talk about in a minute. He decides he's selling it, and his big like second act thing that he like starts and then stops is I'm going to sell the house, and then he decides, oh no, this is the house that I love. Of course I want it back, and he ends up buying the house back from the person he sold it to.
Right.
That's like the big thing
And
that they add.
offering it back to his wife, his pregnant wife, as a
Right.
peace offering because they're living in their in-laws' house.
Totally. So while they're selling their house, they're actually staying at their in-laws' house.
Right.
And there's a moment where, so there's the two dogs from the first one that caused the fucking pool scene.
Yeah.
They are giant Dobermans that are very vicious towards him
Right.
and not her. And they do, I wish I knew what this trope was called, but basically it's the trope in a comedy where something really terrible is truly happening to one character and another character is acting like everything is normal and they must be crazy right now.
Yeah.
So like she's in bed and the dogs are also in bed and he's trying to get the dogs out and they are like threatening him, and her basic reaction is just, what do you say? Everything's fine, just tell him to leave, it's good. She's so divorced from the reality of the story.
Right. Well, at this
I
point,
hate it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what happens is at this point she's pregnant, but she doesn't know it, so she's just like not feeling very well.
Yeah.
And so she says to him, he says, "Well, I'll just go sleep in one of the other like 50 rooms.
Right.
And
again, the upper middle class talking about the upper class.
It's a very big house. And she says, no, please don't leave me. Like, I'm not feeling well. Like, I don't want to be alone. But she like is not doing anything to help, which she literally can't get in the bed. Like, she's 2 giant dogs in the bed with her. Like, we have 1 small dog. And if he is on the wrong place in the bed and doesn't want to move, you can't get in the bed.
Right.
Like, it is not an easy thing to like get in bed around a dog.
Our dog's a shithead.
He's not great. No, he's very sweet. What I wrote down is actually dogs on bed feels very real. Because if a dog is in a bed and doesn't want to move, like that dog is not going to move.
But her reaction doesn't feel real, and that's the important thing.
Well, because then she's like, why don't you just sleep on the he's like, well, I guess I'll just sleep on the floor. She's like, oh, okay. And she like hands him a pillow and he like just beds down on the floor. And I like looked at you and I was like, I would never make you sleep on the floor. Like, it would never occur to me that would ever be a thing that was okay. She's doing nothing, even the simplest thing, to improve the situation. She's like, oh yeah, of course my husband will sleep on the floor. Like, really?
Yeah.
It actually upset me how mean she was to him at this point.
Everyone, like this, I have tons of problems with the first one. This one takes every single one of my problems and elevates it. This is like a script that was grown in a petri dish.
Yeah.
None of the characters' relationships make sense. Their choices don't make sense. Everything's a trope. Everything is a traditional like screenwriting choice to make. Nothing is designed to make me identify with the characters.
Yeah.
I enjoyed watching this movie because it's very bad.
Yeah.
But it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
It really is like just awful.
Well, and this kind of comes back to my earlier note, which is it's possible the producers did not know how pregnancy works.
Yeah.
Which, like, I was saying this the
Which
other
is funny
day.
considering that Nancy Meyer's whole thing is telling women's stories.
Right. Because, okay, if you are going to make a movie about something, even if it's a comedy, I truly think it behooves you to base it in some sort of reality because otherwise you're adrift.
Yes.
Otherwise you are not in the world. And so the thing that I think is funny is the ridiculousness of how things work sometimes. And the fact that we spent so much time trying to figure out the timelines of these pregnancies in a comedy means that they were not doing their job, because if it was funny and engaging, I don't think we would have thought about or noticed it. It's like, you know, sometimes when I'm directing, I say to my actors are like worried about something, like something very minor, like someone's shoes or like where should I stand or like, you know, whatever.
I think I know what you're going to say.
And
It's like an old chestnut.
Yeah. Like what I always say to them is if the audience notices that, we're doing something terribly wrong.
Right.
So for example, Nina's not feeling well. She hasn't been feeling well. She goes to the doctor. She thinks she's either in menopause or has like ovarian cancer.
Right.
And the doctor calls her and says, you should come in and you should bring your husband. And so she's freaking out, as anybody would be, thinking like it's going to be horrible news. They're going to tell her she has cancer. And so she's sitting there with Steve Martin, and the doctor says, Mrs. Banks, I have good news for you. You're pregnant. And she's delighted.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he's a piece of shit about it.
Oh, such a shit.
Such a shit.
Immediately accuses her of cheating.
But here's his rationale. So he says, who's the father? And she's like, what? And the doctor's like, what? He's like, well, it can't be me because we haven't done it in 6 weeks. And as someone who was recently trying to get pregnant and understands a lot about ovulation, I thought, that's about right. Like, I don't know if I want to even get into how ovulation works, but especially if you're not actively trying to get pregnant and you don't think you can be pregnant, 6 weeks is about right.
And now my immediate reaction is he's talking about the moment in the kitchen that they shared together.
Right, which I thought was 6 weeks ago.
But then she says, well, what about that time?
And I thought, again, when she says, what about that time? She was talking about the time in the kitchen.
Right. And I think she is.
Yeah.
Which was even more recent.
Right.
Which that's still okay.
That's still okay.
But basically, like, she's saying, what about that other time? It's almost like they're saying they're pregnant because of a time that happened before the kitchen.
Yeah.
That had nothing to do with the kitchen.
It was so confusing. Okay, I'm going to talk about how ovulation works for 1 second.
Good. I'm glad, because this is exactly what our podcast is.
Assuming an average 28-day cycle, which not everybody has, but we're going to go with it. You ovulate halfway through your cycle, which is about 14 days after the start of your period. And that is when you are fertile. You are most fertile for the 1 to 2 days leading up to ovulation, and maybe on the day of ovulation itself. After you ovulate, you are no longer fertile for the rest of your cycle. You have missed your window.
Mm-hmm.
The earliest that a pregnancy test in 2019 can detect that you are pregnant, so probably it was different in 1995, but the earliest that you can possibly have enough pregnancy hormone in your body to know that you are pregnant is 2 weeks after that. So if you're trying to get pregnant like we were, you're testing all the time, so you're actually going to know pretty early. But if you're not trying to get pregnant, finding out you're pregnant 6 weeks after is not crazy, because that's only like 2 weeks late on your period.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not that, or it's like 4 weeks late on your period. But like, especially if you're going into menopause and maybe not having regular periods, like that's just not crazy. And the movie presents it as crazy. No, you're right, because the movie presents it as, oh no, of course it wasn't that time 6 weeks ago. It was that time more recently, remember? Like, but 6 weeks is actually about right.
Yeah, totally. It's bullshit.
It's bullshit.
One of my notes about this is when you make a movie, you should do research, but that research can't just be watching other movies.
That's right. That's right.
Everything medical in this movie is just tropes from other movies.
Yes. Yes. Everything medical in this movie is wrong. It is wrong.
Can I give you my favorite example of just a medical thing that... Okay, I'm not going to say it is wrong. I'm just going to say it seems wrong.
Okay.
So towards the end of the movie, they finally get to the hospital because the baby, like Annie's baby, is finally coming. And they actually did a thing that I didn't really remember, which is that there is going to be a time difference between them having the babies, because Annie's due in July and Nina's due in September.
September, yeah.
But then what they end up doing in the movie is they say that Annie's super late and Nina ends up having her baby super early and the babies are born on the same day.
That's right.
But I feel like for that Annie has to be 4 weeks late, which I feel like is not a thing that happens
They don't
very
let
often.
you go 4 weeks late.
Yeah, totally. But when they get to the hospital, George has been given sleeping pills by Frank, who, by the way, is a really big part of this movie. And
He's like the birth coach.
And you may wonder, why is a wedding planner a really big part of the baby movie?
You may wonder.
The baby sequel, but he is, because he's really into babies. And I love Frank, so I'm not complaining that he's in it, but it doesn't make any sense. They're at the hospital, George is in a wheelchair, and he ends up getting wheeled in for an emergency prostate exam.
That well-known at night.
That well-known type of prostate exam, the emergency nighttime prostate exam. Yeah. I'm not going to say those things can't happen. It just seems a little weird, and it's a joke, and it's like one of the few times in the movie that Steve Martin gets to be like Steve Martin funny.
Yeah, which is why they do it, obviously.
Like I would actually say Steve Martin is more Steve Martin funny in this movie than he is in the first one.
Yeah.
But the movie's worse around him.
Yeah.
And he gets some really, really great scenes with Martin Short.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a terrible movie. I think it's got some bad shit in it.
Yeah.
Like the nurse at one point is just poking the belly to see what's going on. That's my note. Was it Nina or Annie?
I don't remember, but you're totally right. She was just like, clearly she was directed, like, go in and check the patient, and she was like, okay, but what do I need to do?
Poke the belly.
So she starts like poking at her. This poor woman in labor. So, okay.
The medical stuff goes even further.
The
There's a thing early in the movie
ridiculous.
where Howard Weinstein, who's also in it, and he's a delight. He has a cold because of how cold. So there's a joke in the movie where they're keeping the house super, super cold, and they've had Annie move back. So it's 2 pregnant ladies in the house, and Steve Martin's taking care of both of them. They got the air conditioners running full blast all the time.
Yeah.
And Howard has this joke where he's like, he caught a cold because of how cold their house is.
So stupid.
Again, that's not how life works.
No.
That's not how anything works.
I mean, luckily, you're very lucky that I don't remember what these 2 notes are, because I wrote HIPAA violation and I wrote ultrasound confusion, and I don't know what that is.
Gotcha.
Okay, so 2 things. I'm going to do these chronologically. So as you were saying, at one point, Annie, her husband had to go to Japan or something. For a business trip.
Yeah.
And so she's very close to giving birth, so she moves back in with them. And so she and her mother are both super pregnant at the same time. And there's all this montage of them doing exercises led by Frank for some reason.
Frank. His name is Frank.
Excuse me.
Egelhofer. It's a treasure of a character. By the way, I just had a debate with you yesterday, like an internal debate about whether I should buy tickets to go see a concert like 3 weeks before the baby is due.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm sure it'll be fine. Just know the baby might come early and then you lose the tickets. And you're like, okay. And then you didn't buy them.
I decided not to because these things matter.
It was not a question of whether or not you would go to Japan.
Yeah.
Like on my due date.
Totally.
Okay. So Steve Martin in the narration is saying how great it is to be with these pregnant ladies day in, day out, and how healthy they are and how their pregnancies are progressing. And then he says their weight. And what he says is that his wife and his daughter, who are both full-term pregnant,
Yep,
are 128 and 132 pounds, respectively.
yes.
Again, Nancy Meyer had script supervision over this, and this is a line in the movie. Nancy Meyer, whose stated goal is to make stories about women.
Skinny, upper-class white women.
Okay.
Straight, by the way, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, that doesn't even enter into it. That's
Right.
like not even in question. Here's my impression. My impression is that men as a group, hashtag not all men, men in general,
Yes.
have no understanding of what women weigh. And my theory is that if you asked yay random man on the street, if you saw an average woman that you perceived to be slim and attractive, how much do you think she weighs? I bet you that the average answer would be somewhere between 100 and 120 pounds.
Oh, I was just about to say that, yeah.
Yeah.
Not because I think that, just
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
And I think there is this perception that if you're 120 pounds, that's the right weight, and anything above that is fat. So I think my impression of this is that someone thought, okay, well, women weigh 120 pounds, and obviously, as everyone knows, you gain weight when you're pregnant. So let's just pick numbers that are larger than that. Because the way that he says it is that these are large numbers. This is a lot to weigh. 132 pounds is a lot to weigh. And even if you started at 120 pounds and you were full-term pregnant and you weighed 132 pounds, your doctor would be concerned about you. Because if you are a person who is in sort of a mid-range BMI when you get pregnant, what they want you to gain is 25 to 35 pounds. So,
I'm doing
and
the
many
math.
people gain a lot more, and it kind of just depends on your body. You can have excess fluid, you can retain water, like a lot of things can happen to make you gain significantly more weight than that. The baby itself is 8 to 9 pounds, maybe, like anywhere between 6 and 9 pounds, if not more or less. What I'm saying is that he says 132 pounds as if it were a massive weight to weigh. Because as he says it, you're seeing these hugely pregnant women. I mean, listen, I am a slender-ish woman. When I am not pregnant, I weigh more than 132 pounds. Now I am pregnant and I weigh more than that. But what I'm saying is that I think women weigh more than men think they do. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
And again, it was just this completely ridiculous thing that had no basis in reality that took me out of the movie that's supposed to be a funny comedy. And it made me mad.
Yep.
I had another thing. Did you have another thing?
I feel like you're going to talk about something that happens towards the end of the movie. And there's just one thing about this movie that I want to talk about very briefly that I don't want to let pass.
Okay.
Which is dear Eugene Levy.
Yeah.
Who is an actor that you and I both adore.
Yes.
He's wonderful in so many things. He's in the first one. Plays like a wedding singer in one scene.
Brief cameo.
He's in the second one as well. I mentioned that George is selling the house.
Yeah.
Eugene Levy plays a stereotypical, how would you describe?
Arab.
Yeah. I'm going to go straight up. Arab.
Yeah.
Arab character. And you and I both had the exact, who's buying the house from him, like cash immediately. And you and I both had the exact same reaction. And this is my note, is he's walking up and we both go, hey, it's Eugene Levy. Oh no. To the performance that he gives.
Yeah.
It is horrifying from a racial standpoint. Just horrifying. And Eugene Levy is a goddamn professional, so he gives it 100%.
Yeah.
And it is really terrible.
Like he yells at his wife to shut up, presumably in Arabic, and she does.
It is in gibberish.
It is in gibberish, but presumably in Arabic.
Uh-huh.
And then throughout the rest of the movie, every time anybody is any woman is talking to Steve Martin in a way that he wants them to shut up, he yells at them he tries to do the same thing as if it's magic, and it does not work, and also is offensive.
Yeah, I just go back to George Banks is a piece of shit in these movies, and not like a funny piece of shit. So many of my notes are about like what the filmmakers expect the audience to put up with in regards to George's bullshit.
Yeah.
And I really wasn't putting up with a lot of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I kind of had the same reaction, but about something else, which you may have gleaned from everything that I've said, which is so much of the movie is what filmmakers expect people to put up with in terms of totally inaccurate ideas about pregnancy that come from other movies, as you say.
Yeah.
Which is just silly. And it also makes me think, who is this movie for? Because many people watching this presumably have either had babies or been in close proximity to someone who is having a baby and knows that it's not accurate. So, like, who is the audience for this who's not going to get taken out by all of this completely insane stuff?
I mean, the audience was not as big as for the first one.
Yeah.
And I feel like the audience that they're hoping for this movie is just people who love the first one. There's constant callbacks throughout the entire thing. There's like a scene where they are going to stay at the in-laws' house, and as they walk in the front door, the husband goes, "You remember the dogs, of course," like referring to that scene from the first movie where he met the dogs.
Right.
It's been 4 fucking years. Of course they've been to that house more often.
A million times, probably.
That's how that works.
They live in, like, the next town.
Like, it just... So many things are clearly designed to take advantage of how timeless... take advantage of the timelessness of the first one that the filmmakers assume it has. It does not have that.
Yeah.
Do you want to take us home?
Yeah, I will just say very quickly, there was a moment where Annie is upset about... she wants to move to Boston for her job, and her husband like doesn't really want to go, and she's like in tears, and she says, like, I just don't understand because he said he would move anywhere for me. And we both looked at each other and went, he did say that.
Yeah, he did. He did.
She's not wrong.
That's a line in the movie.
Yeah. So I just want to take us home. So Annie's in labor. Mm-hmm. They get to the hospital. The joke is that the doctor is not her doctor, who is presumably an old white man who delivered her. But the doctor on call is someone that Steve Martin does not think looks like a doctor. She is a young woman, and does not think can possibly be good at her job. It turns out she's very good at her job. And then Diane Keaton goes into labor. So now they're both laboring at the same time in separate rooms. And Steve Martin is like running back and forth, as is Franck, between the two rooms.
Franck, who is there.
And the husband shows up from Japan at the last minute. The doctor keeps saying things that lead one to believe that it's very unusual for two people to be giving birth at the same time because she's the only one there, which I'm not even going to go into, but I did not like.
Just to interrupt for 1 second.
Yeah.
Like, you said that to me while we were watching it, and I kind of pushed back and said, I don't think it's that she's saying that it's weird for two people to be, in labor at the same time. It's weird for a mother and daughter at the same time to be in labor. But then the movie progressed,
yes,
and I came around to agree with you. The lines were definitely like, it is weird that this doctor has to handle any two labors at the same time.
She's like, I don't know what I'm confident that we can figure this out, but like, right now it just seems like I have to be in two places at once, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And like, obviously they would have backups for more than one person being in labor at the same time. So this is the thing that just like, again, so Annie's having a normal vaginal labor, and they say everything's going great. Everything is great. Like, we know that everything is great, and it's going so great that now we're going to rush you off down the hall to the delivery room, which I guess maybe things were different in 1995. Today, you would labor and deliver in the same room, and then they take you to the room where you stay the next couple days. It just seems to me that grabbing a woman, like, as the baby's crowning and moving her to another room so she can have the baby there, is when everything's going very well and she doesn't need any, like, interventions, seems like that would stall your labor. Like, that seems like a terrible thing to do. But maybe that was normal to do at the time. But the other thing that happens is that Diane Keaton needs to have, like, an emergency C-section. And so Brian is in the room with Annie. For some reason, again, they make him put on, like, surgical scrubs for a normal vaginal birth. Again, I did not understand. I think they just wanted to make it more dramatic.
That's what happens in movies.
And again, right, it's like all the information about birth was from movies. And Steve Martin is waiting out in the hall But I didn't understand why he wasn't with his wife. Like, even if she's having a C-section, again, like from movies, like, oh, well, they're operating, so of course you can't come in. You can come in if your partner is having a C-section. Like, you can stand there. Like, it's okay. But in that case, they do have you scrub up and put on, like, a surgical, gown or whatever. But I didn't understand why he was waiting out. Like, that made... that was the final shot of the movie, like how sweet it was that they're carrying out these babies. First of all, the doctor who's doing the surgery carries out the baby to give to the grandfather, and they have this like touching moment of like, oh, look, see, I told you everything would be okay. And I was like, you should be stitching her up. What are you doing?
And also, there's the whole thing in Father's Little Dividend about how the crazy thing is that the baby should be with the mother.
Yeah. Yes, like, you don't just carry a seconds-old baby out into the hallway all clean to hand to the father. And B, even if you do that, certainly the doctor doesn't do that, because if she's having a C-section, it takes half an hour to stitch you back together again. And that is the doctor's job. I was so angry. I was so angry. Nobody watch this if you're pregnant. It will freak you out and make you sad. That's my final note.
But if you're pregnant and you love Martin Short... Like,
Still
I would
don't
say,
watch it.
No, watch it.
Okay.
Totally watch it. Wanna do some quadrants?
Yeah, let's do it.
This has been an extra long Father's Day episode.
Oh my goodness.
So let's go back to 1950. So do you think that the makers of this cared about the book?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, like the book was huge.
Yeah.
It really feels like they did.
Yeah.
And I think they tried to do a good job. Is it successful?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Like top 100 comedies of all time. I don't agree with its
I don't
placement.
agree with that, but like it's perfectly good.
Like it's definitely successful. 1991's Father of the Bride. I think they cared about the source material being the movie.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah. I don't know that they went back and read the book because there's nothing from the book that made its way past 1950 into the 1991 movie.
No, but there was a lot from the 1950s screenplay that made it into Father of the Bride.
Like they gave the original screenwriters screenwriting credit
They did.
in 1991.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think they cared.
Ish.
No, I guess we got to say no because they didn't really, it doesn't seem like they cared about the novel.
No.
Okay. Did they do a good job?
Yeah,
I like Father of the Bride.
it was better than the second one.
I think it is successful. It's not like great.
I mean, it was a successful film.
Yeah, but I think it works. I got problems with it, but I think it works.
I guess it works.
I don't think it's a bad movie.
I guess I just my quibble with whether or not it works is because the main character is so intensely unsympathetic.
But then having seen Father of the Bride Part 2, I don't think he's as unsympathetic in the first one as he is in the second one.
All right, fine.
Father's Little Dividend.
Yes.
I don't think they cared about the source material when they made this movie.
No.
It's a cash grab.
For sure.
It's a funny cash grab. I think it's successful.
Yeah.
Do you think it's
I
successful?
think it's successful.
Father of the Bride Part 2, did
It
they
is not
care?
successful. They did not care.
I don't think they cared. It is not successful.
It was poor and
Like,
it was bad.
I think it's worth watching for like a couple of moments if it's like free or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird, unsuccessful movie.
Yeah.
Well, this has been Adapter Parish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. And if you tweet about the show, don't forget to use the AdaptCast hashtag. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have something to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are two great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would always be greatly appreciated.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. Oh, wait. Oh, my God. Thank
you.
you. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.